Team Fortress 2. You've likely heard of it, which you definitely have because it was discussed in the modding section of the subject. 2007, not team-based multiplayer, not first-person shooter created by Valve. It was originally released for $20 but became free to play on the 23rd of June 2011, 4 years after it was released. This opened the game up to a much larger player base and also caused the community to divide between the cringe, poor, 12-year-old squeaker F2P or F free-to-plays and the obviously superior pay-to-plays.
So we've arrived at the portion of the video where we will discuss the Team Fortress 2 market crash, how it happened, and the entire theory behind what a market crash would look like and the factors that would go into it. But before we try to understand and go into the concept of what it would look like and what a market crash in a game like this would be like, it's important to first understand the currency of Team Fortress 2, as without understanding the currency, it's not really possible to understand the market crash as well as the key inflation. Okay, so here are the four most basic forms of currency there are in Team Fortress 2. In descending order in terms of value. First we have the key, then the refined metal, also known as ref, the reclaimed metal, known as rec, and scrap metal, which is just normally referred to as scrap. Now, the way these things relate to each other is that 3 of these scrap metal makes 1 reclaimed metal, 3 of these reclaimed metal makes a refined metal, and while you would be forgiven for thinking 3 refined metal makes 1 key, it's not that simple. You see, weapons, well, 2 weapons make 1 scrap, and the thing is, weapons, scrap, rec, and ref do not have physical monetary value in the real world. Their monetary value are effectively tethered to the key, which has a set value in place, which is, if I remember correctly, around 2 to 2.5 US dollars. What this means is that all of the prices and the values of metal is entirely dependent on the key itself. And here we can finally segue into the metal, or rather key inflation. And the idea is, originally a key begun as something around 4 to 5 of these refined metal. So it kind of made sense. You know, it was a 3, 3, 3, and okay, if it's 4 and 5, it's not that bad. But as things currently stand, they are more in terms of, more in the likes of around 17, 18 refined metal, which means that the value of the key has inflated by a lot, or rather the value of refined metal and therefore reclaimed scrap metal has decreased. Now, why would this happen? Why would keys suddenly inflate so much in price? Why would fine metal suddenly be basically of no value? Well, this comes to something we call crafting. And here is basically where we get the 3 scrap is 1 reclaimed, 3 reclaimed is 1 ref, 2 metal is 1 scrap. It's where we get that entire idea. You have the choice rather, to smelt class weapons, which allows you to throw 2 weapons of the same class, craft, and you will get scrap metal. And the same here. If you combine 3 of these scrap metal, you can get a reclaimed metal, and by a similar fashion, you can do the same thing, and voila, you have your refined metal. Now, there is not a way to turn refined metal into keys, and That's what I was talking about how refined metal and keys don't have a specific exchange rate. Rather, it would be decided by the market itself. And here we can go into the explanation as to why keys inflated. So the original idea of refined metal was that you can effectively come here to fabricate headgear, and you can throw 3 refined metal in, and you can get some form of a random cosmetic. Now, the problem with this is that, well, you are not really sure what kind of headgear you would get. And so there isn't much of an incentive for you to really use that refined metal into crafting, because you'll be smelting down all your weapons, getting scrap, saving up scrap for reclaimed, and then eventually getting into refined metal. But there's really no place for you to use it other than change it into keys. And so what basically happens is that there will be hundreds upon thousands of refined metal that would be crafted each day using the same technique, which means that the supply of refined metal will only continue to increase. And because keys can only basically be generated at a rate that is much slower than refined metal, because refined metal, remember, we can get that from smelting class weapons, which are dropped within game, and therefore, because of that, the speed in which we generate refined metal would be much, much faster than the speed by which we generate keys, which is only through purchasing through the Manco store. You can see why the key would inflate in value. So now it is about time we talked about the Steam Community Workshop. Now, as the name would suggest, it is effectively a place that, well, is a workshop. It's a place for players to share their creations to the rest of the community. Now, as for what these creations can be, well, it's kind of unlimited. Whatever you want to create, you can effectively create in-game. Now, of course, there will be guidelines for certain things, but within these guidelines, you can effectively create anything you want, and hopefully one day, when somebody at Valve decides that, hey, this is kind of a cool idea, they can effectively implement it. Now, an example of how cool this idea is through the loadout I'm currently using. Everything you see on this current page is a community created item. From the shortstop, to the Mad Mill, to the Holy Mackerel, to the Front Runner, to the Bach Boy, to the Track Terrorizer, every single part is community created. And to think that you'd be able to equip an entire arsenal of things that are created by players of a game, that's an idea that I would suggest is unforeseen, or at least probably not seen in a game that is as old as Team Fortress 2 is, which really goes to show how amazing the community is and what a good idea the Steam Community Workshop is. And these cosmetics and weapons are only a small portion of all the things that the Steam Community Workshop has made. Steam Community Workshop has made many, many more cosmetics, many more weapons, but also, aside from just weapons and, well, cosmetics, you could also create taunts, you can also create, maps, and the maps that you can create are not just limited to maps that you can play regular modes of Team Fortress 2 on. These maps can also include many things, such as maps that are meant to help you learn how to rocket jump, or, maps that support different modes, like medieval mode, where everyone must use their melee weapon to, well, effectively try to kill each other. Or, there's game modes like Goomba Stomps, where you're effectively Super Mario and you attempt to step on the heads of, well, your enemies. All these kind of game modes make TF2 such a, well, for the lack of a better word, versatile game. And the ability for the community to create multiple items maps really goes to show why this game has withstood the test of time for so long. Simply because, well, it will continue to thrive as long as there is a community that supports it and continues to go and create new, interesting ideas. And that's one of the reasons why I find Team Fortress to be such a good game.
So, what actually is TF2 about? Well, there's too much to talk about, so here's a really basic summary of the original story. Around 1850, a guy called Zephaniah Mann bought a large amount of useless land in America filled with dust bowls and gravel pits. Zephaniah had grown severely ill from travelling around the world, and when he died, he gave half of the land to his son Redmond, and the other half to his other son Plutarch. There was a third son named Grey, but he was abducted by an eagle in the Great Eagle Scourge of 1822. Redmond and Plutarch were both unsatisfied with only owning half the land, and thus continually fought over it, something which Zephaniah wanted to happen. Both brothers had hired mercenaries to fight, starting a war over the land. Once Plutarch had grown old himself, he hired a craftsman named Radigan to build him a machine to help him live longer. Radigan agreed, and when he had returned back to his store, another offer was made by a person working for Redmond. She offered £100 of Australium to build Redmond a life extender too. Australium is an element found only in Australia, and the element was what caused the nation of stupid, savage convicts to become super intelligent. Obviously, reflective of real life here. Being exposed to this, Radigan was able to build the life extenders among other genius inventions such as the teleporter and invisibility cloak, both seen in game. Now with both brothers cheating death, the war over the useless gravel pits became an endless bloodshed, with mercenaries doomed to keep on suffering. In July of 2015, Valve added to the game a competitive matchmaking beta pass. A few of the passes were dropped randomly to people, giving that person a pass for themselves and one to give to somebody else. Being one of the beta testers myself, it was easy to see how flawed the official competitive gaming mode was. Teams could all go in the same class and just troll, and if somebody left, there was a highly unfair advantage given to the opposite team. More problematic was that certain weapons, which are often deemed unfair or cheap, were allowed to be used in the game. The only changes to the competitive mode were a strict 6-person team limit, less maps and game modes, and no random critical hits or bullet spread. Now, 6 years after its announcement, and 5 years after being officially implemented into the game, the official Team Fortress 2 competitive game mode is dead, being nearly impossible to find in an actual game. The community-created competitive modes have predetermined teams use some sort of voice communication, have a predetermined player count, such as 6v6 or 4v4, and all players are aware of the implemented restrictions, whitelisted weapons, and class limits. With a total of 160 weapons in the game, having a whitelist of certain weapons to limit out unfair and broken ones is one of the most important factors which separates the community-created game mode from the official one. Some seasons go as far to ban certain classes from being played. However, there is already a pre-established meta of using certain characters, usually the most versatile ones that can adapt to multiple scenarios. Maps and game modes are also more restricted in the community-created competitive mode compared to Valve's. Team Fortress 2. A common slogan that follows the name Team Fortress 2 is Hat Simulator. Team Fortress 2's most iconic feature is by far, undoubtedly, its hats and what have stemmed from them. In 2009, a couple of years after the release of the game, Valve added its first wave of cosmetics to the game. Most of them were serious or mundane, barely standing out from the crowd, such as the football helmet for Scout and the soldier's stash. A few months later, another wave came out, adding hats like the stainless pot and camera pit, a few small silly cosmetics for players to enjoy. The value of hats skyrocketed due to the popularity and a rarer drop rate, giving birth to the community-made economic system. Valve saw profit in this, and thus continued pumping out cosmetics for their fanbase to enjoy. Just 1 year later, we see cosmetics getting sillier, with cosmetics such as the towering pillar of hats and however you pronounce this. A few months later, the silly nature displayed in the cosmetics leaked into other aspects of the game, with the infamous holy mackerel, a fish used to beat people to death, being added. Taunts were also added to the game, originally starting with basic taunts like laughing and then adding high fives, eventually leading to the creation of taunts where players would ride broomsticks or scooters, tiny takes, play instruments, rock paper scissors, backflip, headbutt, eat fried chicken, and most importantly, most iconically, dance. In 2014, the Love and War update, most commonly referred to as the bread update.
I teleported bread. What? You told me to. How much? I have done nothing but teleport bread for 3 days.
Added the ability to taunt with enemies, embracing the community's wish of a stupid, friendly, relaxed game. The day of this release was one where all players came together. Even the tryhards that often killed friendly players joined in the fun of dancing. When you search up TF2, it tells you the game was made by Valve. This is false. Valve created the platform for Team Fortress 2 to develop, a game which turned out completely different to its original state. Team Fortress 2 was instead developed by me, by my friends, by the people I play with every time I launch the game, by its online community, and the entire fanbase. The entire economic system, the competitive scene, the way the game is played is what makes Team Fortress 2 Team Fortress 2. Valve is not the creator of Team Fortress 2. We are.
Make sure that you're wearing a winter coat and a purple hat while you read this paragraph.
He just died from fall damage. Hey, we win! Jeez. Oh my god, there's a sniper! No, I missed! I got him! I've got new crates. This is wow. It's my lucky day. I have a winter 2020 war paint case and a winter 2020 cosmetic case. No! How did they not get the medic? The Ullable Caver sucks. Oh, it's crooked! Hey! No! Yeah. Oh! 3 health! No! Yeah, the scout was dancing. And they're all going pyro to counter us. Oh no! Oh no! No! That's a pyro shark! Get out of here! Oh, I got him! I got him! Yeah. Alright, surely. High five. Ah! Funny joke! Oh. Yo, that's hot. Sheesh. It's too good. Is it heavy? I got him. Oh, it's a sentry. Got it. I got the engineer. No, no. 2 health. Go. No. Oh, I see it. He just walked past Dakota. Oh, he's friendly too. He's like teabagging the sentry. Oh, he's dead. Please. I got 2 health. No, I'm gonna die. No! Yeah. Okay, I'm going for him. Go on. Go 2. I think so. Oh! Yes! What are your hobbies? Legal organ harvesting, sports, and occasional war crime.
Oh my god, this soldier. I don't like it when you're on top. Good. Oh, stop airshotting.
Whoa! Gumtree move.
Gumtree? I'm sure Mr. David would very much appreciate
I'm sure you would.
this conversation that is very relevant to the topic.
Just buying meals on Gumtree.
It's crew TF2. Let's just do that as, you know,
Yeah.
for
It's gonna
fun.
be
Let's just do
ideal.
that instead. What? How many points scored?
It's how many milks
How
you
many you
find.
can find? Don't know why Valve
I'm
hasn't picked up on this game yet.
We'll add this conversation into the video. We're having fun, so you know, this is great. That's what this is about.
Boom! Yeah, I slapped my bum.